When I first began working for the European Cultural Foundation some 9 years ago, I was director of the Project Lab for Culture. And we always spoke of it being an international or a transnational, or talked about collaboration across international borders. And that was the basis of the thinking. And even in terms of talking about European Cultural Foundation, thinking about an international foundation. And that could be, you know, the 28 countries of the EU, or the some 50 within the understanding of the Council of Europe. But I think what is much more important is the understanding of interlocal. Because people don't connect to one another on a national level. We don't meet on a national level. We identify with these multi-layered identities that think about neighborhood, city, region, a cultural group, a generation, a gender. People do not define themselves in the same way as in previous generations, not as rigidly saying, I am this kind of artist or that kind of artist. And the ability to approach career in a much more fluid way, understandably out of necessity. It's a different kind of context that an artist is moving into now in areas that there had been public funding before and there no longer is. It's a different kind of precarity that artists and cultural organizations face in terms of the living and the future and the career that they've got. But there is a much, I think, greater sense of interdisciplinarity. And also that relates to how there's been much greater shift, as you've all experienced in audiences. Again, a generation one, a greater expectation of participation and process and being part of the creation and the product, and not only receiving. So an upending, as we all know, which requires a rethinking of relationship to audiences, but that is influencing and has influenced an entire generation, be they considered themselves on the creator side or on the audience participation side. Because not only do we look at intergenerational, but things like the internet allow us in unprecedented ways to put side by side and bring side by side the expert, to use an older term, with the experienced. And the value of that is so important. I mean, that constant debate of the internet being full of people who know nothing, to a space where the experience of all of those people with the expert is hugely valuable to the changes that can happen in our society. It's much easier for policymaking to think about things and to navigate when boundaries and silos are more fixed. So when we start disintegrating them and breaking them down, it is difficult for policy to follow in that. They lag behind the change that needs to happen. But for that shift to happen, there needs to be, I think, a combination between policymakers' willingness to listen and change and our willingness to engage with that policy change.